Rolling now, and we have on the line Ugly George and also Harold. Do you want me to connect both of you, or just want to do a quick in and out?
Well, I got to tell you real quick in and out, okay?
Okay.
The White House has linked to Ugly George's search pages on Yahoo.
Uh-huh.
They have done it again now, okay? If you just put in Ugly and George, 2 words, Ugly George, on Yahoo, it's about page 6, and it says, President Bush calls for constitutional amendment to protect marriage, meaning to protect marriage to Paula Gloria, okay?
Just a second.
And it connects to, of all
Can you
things,
buzz that person in?
whitehouse.gov.
Hang on just a second.
This one, the door, press door?
Yeah. No, or just ask, who is it? So talk. Who is it?
Who is it?
Some more people are...
They went in around.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay. Go on, George, sorry.
Okay, so I think it's pretty good that the president has linked again.
You think it's good?
And I can't say I can set up a date with you and him anytime soon. But you know what? He might just be calling in if we do this live show about pornography that we talked about. Okay?
Oh, that we talked about. Well, thank you for your discretion.
Yes, okay?
Okay.
But we're going to try to see if we can get the president to be watching while we're doing the live show, okay?
Okay, you should go online right now. We've got quite a
I
line.
have you online right now looking blonde and beautiful, as usual.
Oh, thank you.
Okay?
But do you see
and
the...
that should inspire not only
We've
our
got
president, but the
Immortalists.
who will be watching this show.
Hey, George, we've got Immortalists right now.
What?
Do you see that gorgeous woman there in blonde with the boots?
Yeah.
Has she got a story to tell us? I mean, it shows what the potential is of human nature that has been considered unreachable before, or something only in
Get her away from the guy and have her take a little something off. She's overdressed. Okay?
I'm sure she'll have something to say to all of us.
Yeah, all right?
Okay, thanks,
can't have
George.
overdressed blondes on.
Okay. Thanks,
Okay.
George. Bye.
All right, so I'll tell the president to stand by until we're able to do the show you talked about. Okay, Paul?
Well, maybe you... Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so long.
Bye. Harold? Harold?
Yeah, I'm here. George has they're probably putting it in the echelon database, but I'm not sure the president's going to be watching, but good luck, George, on that.
Hi.
The people here don't even know. We're streaming right now, and Alan Steinfeld has just popped in. Say hello. There's the monitor, and you can see what's going on. Do you think the light's okay? Should we change the light? If you want more light.
The camera looks so tilted. No,
Yeah, I was gonna say. We're tilted.
They're tilted.
Like in
Yeah.
what's it called?
Okay.
Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, no, the camera's tilted. I think you could use this extra light. You want to put this in?
Yeah, but I'm like online right now.
Okay.
I mean, here, I want you to put it in.
Want me to put it in? This is our makeshift studio, and we can't get the other studio.
Looks like it works.
So while they set up, Harold,
You know, you could
I've
turn
just
it on.
decided to just get more relaxed about this whole situation. You know what I mean? Even yesterday when I was late, I thought I wasn't late. You know, I thought it turned out really well.
What?
Well, it's,
You know?
yeah, and it'll be up on YouTube by tomorrow anyway.
Oh, does Harold want to interview? Well, I don't know if we have time,
And
but
the other one.
Harold's another.
Al stayed for that other guy, and Rich Visuale reported on
Are you guys
sport.
okay over there?
Yeah. Now we
You
are.
look great.
Thank you.
The Olympics in San Francisco. The Colors did a really good project.
Why did you like the Olympics so much?
Oh, it was just like such a, it was just like a comedy.
Yeah,
A comedy?
No, yeah, like, it was just, I can't believe that CNN went for 2.5 hours without an advertisement.
Did you get down here okay?
It covered it
Took about a
in
half hour, though,
detail.
that
It
passage.
was like a Keystone Cops movie or a Marx Brothers.
I'm sorry, Harold, to be.
The street was a torch and into a warehouse, and they had cops all around them, and they're, supposed to be the big kickoff for this great event, but it's a lot of pressure coming down on the Chinese government now for their human
power
rights
strip?
and other things.
Paula,
Anyway, it
power
was just
strip?
funny to watch.
It's right under there. So this was a protest against China? Is that the idea?
Yes, there's a great deal of that. I mean, for their attitude toward Darfur and Tibet and other things.
So
And
you're
I don't know, some people, the
Why
Epic
don't we
Times
get this
people
started?
and the others, I had something between 50 and 80 demonstrations in a single year in human rights abuses within China, because they're saying they're a communist country that's supposed to be representing the interests of the poor masses. Masses are not being well treated.
This one could have told me it was under the television.
So it's about China.
Yeah, China.
What do you think they're going to do?
China's the command economy. And you see Mr. Hu, the head of China is called Mr. Hu. Did you realize his first name is Hu? So who's on first? There's a great number of jokes about the Abbott
put that down. Sit there for a second. I just want to line this up.
Or sketch about who's on first. And he's talking to them and he's saying, we represent Karl Marx, and they're still trying to talk about Karl Marx and dialectical materialism and socialism. A lot of people on the left believe in the idea of socialism. And it just looks awfully like a run-of-the-mill kind of capitalist accumulation of power in the hands of a few at the top who are beginning to live very well beyond bourgeois into gated communities and all that sort of thing.
Hi, come in.
People are not being
Michelle?
they don't have a binary model.
She was sorry she couldn't make it last night.
The Olympics was originally to try to see what the gods were thinking in heaven. You know, and it's supposed to be an inspiration, and that when people do huge accomplishment, then they
CNN didn't have an ad stuck in to get their revenue stream going for 2.5 hours. Must have been the assassination of President Kennedy or something. I know they weren't even on. But to go 2.5 hours without those ads that pay the bills is really something. They devoted so much attention to it, and it was like a comedy.
Oh, there's some light.
Because they're running down the street with this thing with a few people, and they had to avoid where all the people were, and they had to go into a warehouse to do diversion, and then sneak out the back of the warehouse down the street where nobody was.
Excuse me just a second.
It was funny. That's
do a lot of things and be great.
I think Harold, I'm gonna cut the stream now and ask people to to stay tuned, because I need to give a little attention to this.
Would you like me to call off and open your lines and stuff?
Gloria, and this show is called Farther Down the Rabbit Hole. We're streaming right now on RabbitHoleCentral, and we've had a little bit of a rocky start, but we're all together right now, and I have the opportunity to talk to people about a subject that is very, very close to my heart, and a subject that I have been kind of warned about not to talk about too easily to just to everybody. So, as a matter of fact, Alan Steinfeld is in the room. He won't be conducting the interview, but he was with me when we were in the south of India with the Miracle Master, who really showed some stupendous command of the laws of nature and a deep understanding of the traditions and the wisdom that lies in deep yogic knowledge. And even he could not sway me from an experience that I had in 1980 with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and Dr. Keith Wallace. Dr. Keith Wallace was one of the first men, the scientists, who called to Westerners' attention the physiological difference between transcendental consciousness and other major states of consciousness. That would be waking, sleeping, and dreaming. And that was introduced in maybe Lancet or Science, one of the peer-reviewed publications in 1972 or 1970. And this was, by 1980, he was doing more research into genetics and what the potential was of the body. And the play between him and Maharishi was very, very precious, I would say, because he was very open-hearted to the wisdom that Maharishi had. He accepted Maharishi as his spiritual master. But at the same time, he was a good scientist. So if Maharishi was taking too many seeming leaps of faith, saying what was going on with science, or with the traditional wisdom, and it couldn't be borne up by science, then Keith Wallace would call him on it. In other words, he'd say, Maharishi, that's not what we're discovering in science. But at the same time, Maharishi would be very excited when he would hear what Keith was tuned into and what had been discovered by science, and that it was corroborated by ancient wisdom. So I was sitting in the front rows of all of this. I had snuck up to the front rows. I wasn't supposed to be there because I was not in the elite crowd. However, the reason there were empty seats up front is because everybody found biology very boring. But I didn't find biology very boring. I was very lucky that I had a good high school teacher in a small girls' school. There was only probably 8 people in our class. And she was studying under Gunter Stent at UC Berkeley before she dropped out in order to help put her husband through school so he could get his PhD. And as a result, she didn't have time to get certification and go through the process that you'd have to go through in the public schools. So I had an excellent high school biology teacher, and our textbook was The Molecular Biology of the Gene with Watson and Crick. So by the time I'm in New Delhi in 1980 and sneaking up into the front rows, and even the guards are bored, the people that are supposed to bump you from being in those front rows, my heart is very open because at this time I had reached my, close to my devotional peak. I'd probably been celibate for nearly 10 years then, totally focused on God realization, and never really had much considered the process of physical immortality. Maharishi sort of had it around, but it never made much sense to a 27 or 28-year-old. So all of a sudden, I attribute it to the fact that both my mind and my heart were very expanded. I was catapulted into like a new dimension. And all of a sudden, transcending, which usually was done with the mantra, going from this mundane level of consciousness into expanded transcendental awareness, it was like reversed completely, and it was like transcending onto the body. And at that point, I would say it was sustained for about 5 minutes is what I would guess. I began to see that the cells are immortal. And the immortality of the cell, I understood it totally. And because I was transcending onto the body, what I also understood, even though I had no training in psychology and psychotherapy, I began to see the human dramas that we go through create our aging process. I saw what flashed before me. They talk about a life review that you have before you're going to die, and you see all of the important images. My little, life review at that point was seeing my husband in bed with another woman, remembering that trauma. I went from 28 years old back to 17, and I began to flash and see everything that I had carried with me. Now, when I came home back to the real world, having had such a huge experience, I remember I used to have anxiety attacks on waking up in the morning that were so strong, I feared to go to sleep at night. And we didn't even know the word anxiety attack. The only thing I could chalk it up to was unstressing. But and I remember when I first started getting gray hair, it really freaked me out. Not because I was getting old and how people get freaked out in the regular society, because I was celibate. I didn't care what I looked like to the opposite sex and things like that. But what that meant to me was evidence that I was buying into what I had seen was a myth. And so today I'm really happy to have with me people who I feel have been similarly inspired. They've had a very profound insight to know that life is much more than we have been led to believe it is. And so what I'd like to do is introduce our guests, but before the end of the show, I would like to show them something that gives evidence to me that we haven't even begun to unfold our potential, and that recently my body has started to shift and change. It's in much better condition than it was 2 years ago. And I think, to quote what Maharishi said at that time, was that immortality and longevity is a function of dharma. As long as you have a great purpose to live, then you're going to have the vehicle in which to do it. In India, it seems as though that country, they're more into recycling. They don't live as long, and even the doctors, when they treat you with a mind of the future life. But that certainly doesn't mean that they don't have those models within the system if you look for it. But it definitely involves a commitment. So what I'm hoping to show our three guests is some of the knowledge that I've recently come across that has to do with the myth of how this present society is held together vis-a-vis 9/11 and the television fakery that we saw then, and to show what I feel in my life has given a great purpose and has involved a great commitment and has allowed me to line up with people who also have made really choices in their life about, and priorities about what's important and what's less important. So without further ado, I will introduce our guests. Welcome to Farther Down the Rabbit Hole.
Thank you, Paula. It's great being on your show.
And do you want to start and introduce yourselves?
Go ahead, Bernie.
I'm Bernadine Brown.
I'm Jim Stroll.
And I'm Charles Paul Brown.
Hello
And
to everybody.
And do you want to who wants to speak first?
Okay, I'll go ahead. Paula? Jim?
Okay, you can.
Okay. Well, I'm grateful to be on the show today, like I said. And I love your experience, Paula, that you had. I mean, it's really inspiring and very stirring to hear your experience about physical immortality, being in the cells of the body. We were talking about this a lot last night in our introduction here in New York. This is the first time we've been in New York, by the way, to do an event, and it's been great. We've met a lot of fantastic people who really want to live, and I feel are serious about unending life, physical immortality. That's what we're about. I should say, to begin with, so everybody's really clear who might be listening, that we're speaking about physical immortality, not spiritual immortality. Okay, there's a huge difference. We're talking that my human body, Bernadine, Charles, whosoever will, can live forever in this physical body. We feel that the human body has the ability to continuously renew itself in the right environment. But not unlike a seed that's thrown on barren ground, it cannot flourish. It cannot really blossom when there's no real nutrients to bring forth that flower or whatever that seed may be bringing forth. So it's like the human body. We've put ourselves in a very toxic human environment. And what we're out to do is create an environment that's really conducive to human beings living and getting rid of all the old baggage of old lives, of the death programming, of everything that's been there to sabotage the true function and natural ability of the body to live forever. And like Paula was saying, I feel that the immortality is in the DNA. We are actually, no matter how dormant in some it may be, it's there. The immortal potential is in everyone. It's there to be sparked, and that's what we're out to do. That's why we're here in New York and moving throughout the world the way we do, is to ignite that immortal potential that is already there in the human being. Everyone has had a desire to live one time or another, to extend their lives or to live abundantly, but some people, through their experiences in life, the depression they may experience, the illnesses and feeling the toxic human environment, lose heart. Well, we're out to say that don't lose heart. I don't care how long you've been here, how long you haven't been here. It's never too late to wake up to a whole new life, a whole new paradigm. It's hard for some people maybe to understand because they've seen so much death that you can live forever. But I want to remind you that you're still looking out of the eyes of a death-oriented consciousness. And there's a whole new life to be seen from where we come from. So give yourself an opportunity to view us from where we're coming from, a whole new paradigm, a whole new way of living, a life without death.
Yeah.
And this is Charles. I thought it interesting, Paula, of your experience, of you having such a phenomenal experience in the beginning concerning physical immortality. We too experienced that at the beginning. And then what we discovered is that we thought everyone would be just as thrilled as we were concerning physical immortality, only to run into a wall in their bodies, which was the deep, deep, deep programming that had, and of their losing awareness of who they were, what their true heritage is. And so I began to go on a search for bodies that were feeling physical immortality. Not the spiritual, but the physical. I knew there was a difference. I came to realize that anything that would orient man away from his body was suspect. So I first met Bernadine, and 9 months after I awakened. And the awakening that I experienced, I use the term a cellular awakening. The reason that is so important to emphasize is that once you've had a biological experience, once you have experienced a biological experience, it takes it out of the belief system. It takes it out of the belief system. It takes it out of the philosophy, just being philosophic about it, because you can change belief systems. You're always changing. Belief systems are always changing. But so I found when I ran into the walls with my relatives and friends and colleagues that I found myself saying, okay, if this is just something that I have conjured up or thought up, then, or my experience, if it was just a fantasy, then I can use my mind to turn it off. So I tried this. I said, okay, I want to make peace with the family and friends. And to my amazement, for the first time, I couldn't turn it off. It was a biological part of me. I could not speak anything else after that. I would go somewhere and think, okay, I won't say a word. And when I opened my mouth, what would come out but physical immortality? That this is the time. This is it's the next step for man.
What was your first experience like 48 years ago? Because I told you mine.
Yes, well, I was in I grew up in a Christian environment with the concept that when Jesus returned, the death could be abolished then, but not until, because he was the Messiah in the Christian world. But when I had the experience, I saw that it was a cellular awakening. The return of the Christ life was the awakening of that blueprint that was already there in the body. And so when that happened, of course, I could only live because I was getting my life from Christ. But when I had the experience that I did, it's like I became the very flesh, bone, blood, body. There was a oneness that took place. Everything unfolded. Everything changed in just a matter of moments. Brain cells began to open, and I began to, my brother came in, wanted to know what was going on with me. And I said, Gene, I said, the church age is over. This is the next step for humanity. I'm resigning from the church. I'm resigning from different things. I've got to go and be who I am. And I've got to find people. And I went, the place I went to was the individual who had, I had heard was saying that the body did not have to die. And he was a wonderful man, tremendous, and I'm eternally grateful that he was that catalyst that caused me to awaken. But I found that they were locked into symbols and trying to get the people to experience through rituals what I had experienced in my brother's home in Bakersfield, California. So I realized I couldn't stay there, and I didn't know where I was going. And then after that's where I met Bernie. And
I noticed when I was telling my experience, you shook your head when I described the anxiety attacks, because I felt that when I came back, when you're trying to reintegrate with the society, that is built up on very different beliefs, it was a little rough.
It's very true.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very true.
Yes.
I became so ultra-sensitive that I spent, after 9 months or a year of awakening and being in a euphoric state of ecstasy, I suddenly lost all my strength and was bedfast for 3 months.
Wow.
During that time, everything of death presented itself for me to recant what I had experienced. And everyone was coming by and saying, oh, if you don't leave this belief in physical immortality, you're going to die. And
you're going to die anyway.
so the system, the nervous system, really goes through an upheaval. But when the nervous system is affected, is because there's a biological shift. It is when the nervous system is affected that the message has gotten through to the DNA. It has bypassed the control of the conscious mind.
Yeah.
And the conscious mind cannot control what's going on in the nervous system. So this is precisely what happened to me. And really, I was born again during that time.
Yeah, right.
And have not been able to speak anything but immortality since. Then in 1968 we met Jim, and we've been working together since 1973.
Well, that's why we, I think, are as intense as we are. It's not. It is a matter of personal abandonment, of totally being alive, but also, like Chuck was saying, we have to touch the nervous system.
Right.
If you don't touch the nervous system, there's no real change in a person. We're just touching the intellect. And that's why a lot of times people can get a lot of truth and enlightenment, but they never really change the structure of their life. Physical immortality is about changing the structure of your life, being born out of an old world of death into a new world. And when you're in that transition, your nervous system is affected. I mean, you can experience a lot of things because you feel like you're you're like transitioning from an old world to a new world, and you don't belong at that time seemingly to either world in a way. And so you can have anxiety sometimes and have a lot of experiences. I did too, because you're waking up and you telling your family and everybody about physical mortality, thinking they're going to be really excited, and they're thinking that either you're crazy or you've gone off some deep end, and you know, like you're betraying the whole family genetics. And so I had to go through all those transitions, and I you know, kept moving though, because I was propelled like Chuck was. I couldn't go back. And now I'm completely have transitioned myself into an immortal world. I'm totally an immortal body now, and that's the life I live. I have other people who I interact with that are physically immortal, and we've created a whole new world. So all that anxiety from that was in that transition is gone, and then that's when the real joy of being alive begins to happen. So we're about helping people who really want to live and want to be and feel that they can be physically immortal, to make that transition faster, not to be stuck in between, to really come out of the closet, you might say.
That's where having other people beside yourself is so vital. It's so important to draw to you people that want you to live as much as you want to live. People that want you to be here as much as you want to be here. Because certainly doing it on our own is not a possibility. We have to find like-minded, like bodies that come together. There's an energy in that death does not come near us. It's a tremendous thing. The body is so magnificent. It's physical. Everything is physical. We've got to get in touch with the physicality of who we are. We've come out from a spiritual world to recognize the body for all it is. Without the physical form, there is no manifestation of spirit. So we really need our bodies to be able to manifest everything that we are.
Can you talk about how you two first met? You said 6 months later you met.
Charles. 9 months.
How
Yes.
Chuck met Bernie, yeah.
Yeah. I was told about Charles Brown by a lady who is a seer. She lived in the mountains of California, and so one day she came down to see me and tell me that she had an experience that I was going to meet an individual who believed in physical immortality, and she told me all about Charles. And some of the things she told me about him, I said, "Oh no, that's it's not for me to meet him." I'm not, you know. But then there were other people that came to me that knew Charles and knew me, and they felt something of us meeting one another, and so that's eventually how I met Charles. I first had a lot of resistance because I wasn't into relationship. I'd experienced enough of that already in my life. I wasn't out looking for an intimate love at the time. I wanted to find people, a person who felt what I feel about being physically immortal. It was such a wake-up for me.
You'd actually decided to be celibate during that time because you had so many relationships that weren't complimentary to you.
That's right. For 2 years, I didn't have any interaction with guys. I mean, I'd had 2 broken engagements. I found it, for me, it was a very empty way to go. I had to find what really nourished me, and so this was how I believe my desire and my hunger brought Charles into my life, really, because, and then of course these other people were responsible for me knowing about him, and so yeah, that was the beginning for me.
What made you believe physical immortality was possible?
When I heard the words, there was a person in Los Angeles, California, who I heard speaking on the radio one day, and he mentioned physical immortality, the words physical immortality, and about the body doesn't have to die. And when he said that, I said, that's me, that's who I am. And from that moment on, I mean, I didn't go through some big ordeal to experience it. It was like, for me, that was just who I was. And so out of that is why I kept searching to find somebody who felt this way, you know, so.
Do you think you had a better than average relationship with your body than most women?
Now?
No,
Yeah.
Then?
That you could have had the capacity to even fathom the value
I had
of
been,
longevity in the physical.
yeah, I had been through some real difficult times. I'd had experienced depression, really feeling like I wasn't even going to be able to make it out of the deep, dark hole. But I had to rise out on my own. I didn't have anybody around me to help me in this. And I feel like because of some of the things I did experience, from a small child, I have to say, I had a hunger that, and I experienced in religion. I had a religious experience. And that was great for me at the time. For me today, that's fulfilled in my life. I don't have any looking back. I'm not. I feel like where I am today is the greatest ever. But I believe through everything that I experienced, yes, it caused me to have something that many women don't have. Yes, or peoples, you know. But I think I always had this feeling, even from a small child, about living. There was something that I loved. I loved to be alive. I loved being alive. Anytime I saw sickness around or death, it was really depressing for me. I felt like that wasn't for me.
You never contemplated suicide in the midst of depression, did you?
I did have thoughts.
Really?
I did have thoughts, and I thought of what would be an easy way for me to get out of my torment. And I thought of different ways. It's funny to me now because I look back then, it was a very painful experience, but for me today, I walked free of that depression. Had it a few different times in my coming through. No, not hearing from him. I didn't know him at the time.
No, but what made, if depression was so bad, if suicide was contemplated, what gave you the faith that such a
because
thing
I'd already,
was desirable?
yeah, I had heard about physical immortality. I had already heard about that, and I had, it was like there was something of me that couldn't go with suicide or that sort of thing. So.
When were you born, and what was going on where you were born? What was your childhood milieu like?
When I was born, what was going on in the world? You mean?
Yeah. What was your
community? What was your experience?
What was my experience when I was born?
Well, your family life.
My family life?
Yeah, what was going on? And where were you born?
Good.
I was born in Salem, Oregon, and my father was he was a printer by trade. He worked for the newspaper in Salem. He set type, but he was also a minister. And my mother was a housewife.
So you had an attentive childhood.
A what?
Attentive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I had kind of a protective childhood in a way.
A lot of television?
There was no television.
No television.
Then. There was no television. I was born in 1937. I remember we had TV in the 50s, and that was my first experience of television.
What was television?
But I grew up with the radio, you know, the radios that stand on the floor, the big radios.
What were your dreams like as a child? What inspired you? Did you like movie stars?
No, I didn't know movie stars existed. Actually, when I was a child, I knew I listened to baseball games on the radio. I remember that when I was a child. Mostly, I was involved in school with the kids. I had friends, and I had my two brothers, and I was a tomboy growing up with them.
But you never read about ascended masters?
No, I didn't know anything about any of that. No, I grew up in church. I heard of the scriptures, so forth, that sort of thing. So.
Very interesting.
Yeah. When when I experienced my awakening in 1960, that year I came in contact with Spalding's Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East.
Oh, in 1950?
1960.
60, okay.
And they had just been published, I believe. Also Annalise Guerin's books of Year Gods and blah, blah, blah. I had everything present itself to me at that time. Much of it seemed to be really wonderful. But I was aware that there was still an overlapping of religion in the writings, and they were influenced and were making certain feelings about the body that didn't coincide. The Masters of the Far East, I thought, oh, that's great, because see, at that point there was a seeking for mastery. Well, if I can live forever, then I have to master the body. And so I did fast. I did a lot of things, but I soon gave that up, and I experienced.
Why did you do fasts?
Why did I fast?
Yeah.
I wanted to get all that I could.
I see. Did it make any difference?
No. At first, the first fast I did, but then after that, I guess I was greedy, and I thought, oh boy, if I feel so euphoric, then I'll fast again. Well, that fast liked to kill me, and I was sitting there and thinking, well, why has this happened now? I've awakened to physical immortality, and then a verse came to me. It said, "He that has the bridegroom has no need of fasting."
Oh, wow.
And I knew that what I had experienced in awakening to physical immortality, that the cells and the atoms of my body was married to the bridegroom, which was the Christ life.
How about you in fasting?
In fasting? Well, I came from a background of a lot of different nutritional experiments. You might say my mother was, from an early age on, was into nutrition, and way back in the early, in in the 50s. She was into colonics then, and you know, raw milk and all these things. So I was a person that was introduced immediately into this, you know, world of health, and so I did fasting at times and cleansing and you know, all those things. When I was 12 years old at that time, I asked my mother. I said, "Why do we have to die to go to heaven? Why can't we have heaven here on earth?" And of course, my mother was a seeker, and we've been to a lot of different events all the time that were going on in around town and other cities too. Anybody would come in town and speak anything new, she'd go to it and take me. And so when I said that to her, she said, "Oh, wow, that's really that's really good. But you know, I like that feeling." But she said it's not really taught, except that in Christianity they're saying that when Jesus comes back, there'll be people who won't see death. And I said, I want to be one of those people. And I want everybody I love to be one of those people. You know, and so I was, you know, a bit, I guess you'd say, naive at that time, but it was showing a feeling that's so, you might say, innocent and yet very innate there in the body of being alive, and until we're taught later that we have to die, and that it's inevitable because everybody's dying. Then when I was 16, I got involved in integral yoga, and it was great for me because at that time it was in the 60s, mid-60s, and everybody was doing a lot of drugs and so forth. A lot of my friends were. It helped me keep me out of that because I could meditate at that time and get on a high without doing drugs. My friends, when I was around them, would go, "Are you sure you aren't stoned?" And I say, "No." I said, "I'm just high and being alive."
But Bernadette says it's not physical. Don't worry about what you're saying.
Okay.
Bernadette says it's not spiritual, it's physical. When did the realization that this spiritual experience that you had could become physical?
I think it began when I was starting to get involved in integral yoga, because Sri Aurobindo, the master of integral yoga, was trying to bring together, he was like the Abraham Lincoln of India. He was trying to bring together all of the yogis to use their enlightenment to create, in other words, humanity. And I love that. That just really touched me. This is before I met Chuck and Bernie, of course, and I love that idea. And I thought, wow, that's what I'm looking for, creating a body that would not die. That was his feeling. Well, he was not successful in doing that because all these enlightened yogis had such huge egos, they could never come together to really unite. And if they weren't fighting over their enlightenment, their disciples were fighting over what master had the greatest enlightenment. So he was not successful in doing it. But he planted a seed, I felt, and he called it integral yoga, bringing together. So that's when I began to realize that the body, mind, spirit all has to be one. And this is what Bernie is saying. It's not like the spirit is not important, but the body, mind, and spirit has to operate as one. If the body is the transmitter of the energy, that's that which we would call spirit, and we've separated it from the body, like there's an entity that lives within us that goes on after we die. I personally don't believe this. I think without the body, the energy's dead, the spirit's dead, the mind dies. There's no total life there. So it all has to work as one, and this is what excited me. And this is why I'm moving, and we're moving together the way we are, to not only unite people in this world who really want to live, but also to unite the body individually, totally, in the duality there that's in the body between the mind, spirit, soul. But it's all one and has to operate as one to really be totally the power we need to be on this planet.
Yeah, the spiritual life tends to take people away from the body. You prepare for when the body isn't here anymore. You prepare for a life after the body. And so that's where we are proclaiming the body is most important. It is the most important because in that then there is the manifestation of spirit. And
yeah, last night you said it really nicely, that there's so much to learn and experience, so that we need this body to go on longer.
Exactly. Right. It's exciting to be alive. We know, I mean, look what all has transpired the last 50 years. That's a very short time. What's going to be in the next 50 years? We don't. I want to be around. I want to be here. I want to be a part of what's happening, you know. And I believe that in that we really do have a buildup in our bodies. A strength starts taking place. It's everlasting. I feel a strength, a physical strength. That doesn't come by way of working out. It doesn't come by way of eating the right kind of food or the vitamins or all this stuff. All of those things are important. Believe me, I do them because I'm alive. But I have a strength that carries me through when I can't maybe exercise at a moment or something. I feel that, and I feel it's a buildup all the time that's getting greater and greater. I'm losing the fears that I once had in being alive. Yeah.
Along those lines of...
Yes, I want to express again concerning the masters, and as Jim touched on Sri Aurobindo, and also the Annalise Guerin. Divorce was the publisher of their books, and when I first read Year Gods, that was all in the same year of my awakening to immortality, and they were saying that since, in the forefront of it, said, since the writing of this book, Annalise Guerin has experienced, as Elijah of old, translation. And it's like she would no longer be around. I said, there's something wrong here. I've been taught translation. When are we going to be here on the planet? Our bodies complete, making the changes, making the difference that needs to be made. And I found there was an etherealness that oriented people yet away from the body. And it's like the same thing with the masters. There was the feeling of reaching that point of being a master over the body, being able to control everything of the body. I feel it's just the opposite. There's a mind and an intelligence that has been controlling the body all the time. It's the body that must take its place. And from there, from the core, all things begin to be revealed. And the one thing in this, that I said that Annalise Guerin will write more books from the time of that first one came out. And she did. She produced a number of books. When I thought to go with the Masters of the Far East, I was checked. Because I found that it didn't matter if you died or if you lived. If you died, you still got a body on the other side. And that didn't make sense. And I also saw that it was drawing that if the body was felt to be inferior and was drawing from the spiritual life, that it was a contradiction. And later, I found out that we had an individual, a doctor from Germany, who was a friend of Divorce Publishing. And after Spalding died, he was visiting with Divorce, and they were having dinner together, and they were discussing Spalding's death. And so the doctor says, why, in all that he wrote concerning in the life and teachings of the Masters of the Far East, why did he not experience physical immortality? And Divorce said to him, he says, well, you know it wasn't real. He says, what do you mean it wasn't real? He said it was a metaphysical vision that Spalding had of how the world should be. And he says, well, why didn't you put that in your book? In the book? Why didn't you put that in the forefront? He said, we wouldn't have sold books.
That is so...
In the same way with with Annalise Guerin, they put that translation to where they had the image, and then she would appear and disappear, and people would go and flock after trying to find her in California. Right. And this is where it's here. There must be a joining together, and the whole thing of masters and levitation and so forth. The levitation is to be lifted above the death.
No, my sister levitated. So
that's great. But the most important, the most important thing is that we are levitating above death.
Yeah.
And the same thing with going through the walls. People would want to tell us now, if you are immortal, if you've arrived at this place, you will be able to change the molecular structure of your body, and you will be able to walk through the wall. I said, why would I dispense that energy doing that when we created a door to walk through the wall?
Yeah, I agree. There's also something about being ready for the knowledge too, and I think this readiness, if you're publishing books for organizations that are having an audience of immature people, then they kind of they get what they get the books they deserve. But I'd like to show you now something that who's on me now? How can you be on? Oh, through the mirror. Oh, I see. Okay, let me come over here, and I'll show you. I'll show. Yeah. And now I want to show you something that was very impressive to me along the lines of a society and social beliefs and how we get locked in. Okay. And if you can watch there, it's only a couple minutes. You may want to see it again, and then we'll discuss it, and then I'll go on to something else.
You want to describe what you're going to show?
Yes. Let me put it up on the monitor first. And RabbitHoleCentral.
She gets live calls.
Hello?
Hi, Paul. It's Rich.
Rich who?
Rich Hagan. How are you?
Do I know you?
Yeah, remember I did the show? Binary Economics?
Oh, yes, yes. Now's not a good time to talk because I'm streaming.
Oh, okay.
We'll talk another time?
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Rich.
Okay.
Bye. Okay, I did a great show on binary economics with a man who turns out to be homeless.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you see on the monitor, this is called, okay, let me just introduce this better. I think part of the thing about physical immortality is people say you're taking away from the human drama and art and beauty and poetry because it's all about the agony and the ecstasy and like that. So when you watch this, what I'm going to show you, somebody set to music the fakery that was done during 9/11 and that we are living in a cartoon reality. But just listen to the music and sort of let it in and see if your experience was similar to mine. You can go over there. So what I'm going to ask you, did you understand what... Oh, Michelle, can you stay there? I'd actually like to have you on, if we can get you on. This is a Tahitian princess that's going to be with us. And did you understand what that was?
Yes.
What did you understand?
Well, what I understood the clip was showing was that this was a computer created image by... Oh, a computer created image by the...
Actually, this one, right?
By, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So what I understood by seeing the clip, that this was, they're saying that it was a computer created image that when the planes flew into the...
Had you heard this idea before?
Yes.
You too, Bernadette?
Not totally this particular idea, no. But I heard that there was there was a conspiracy around the whole 9/11, but I hadn't seen this particular idea.
Not this idea?
No, not that the plane was a computerized image that flew into the building.
So that's the first time you heard it
Yes,
here.
it's the first time.
And you, Bernadette?
I'm not familiar with this.
You never saw that. And what did you think?
Well, I was in question. I could tell that there was some computer adjusting going on. And I don't know what I feel about it. I feel that there are different theories, different conspiracies that go on. And I feel that we as physically immortals, that we have to be alert and not become sidetracked by the theories that would swallow us up. We would lose our focus. We'll lose our focus on what our purpose is for being here.
Yeah.
And that purpose is to really awaken humanity to physical immortality, where there is a sacredness of the body, because in all that happened, there's not a sacredness of flesh. Flesh has always been disposable for systems. And systems have always, in one sense or another, had conspiracies because they protect the system. And so what I feel that we must do, we must not become sidetracked because our mind could be boggled. Our senses could be absolutely...
So you admit it's boggling.
Yes.
It's boggling.
Absolutely.
But Bernadette,
it's a real... I'll finish this. It's impacting. And in that...
Oh, Bernadette.
In that, we lose our focus in what we're really all about. Because you feel the input of that, of the things that are treacherous and what could be going on in the world. But we must be focused on why we're here. And that is to bring forth physical immortality.
Do you feel any different than what he says? Otherwise,
No,
I'll just go.
I feel exactly what he
Okay, so let me go on to a second one here. And this is a different thing. Okay, now I'm going to change tapes because I only have a minute left on this. And happened to me, since I've embraced this knowledge and searched and looked at it, it's brought a vitality to my physical body that nothing has before since I've had the experience. And this was diametrically opposed to when I first came back home and had these anxiety attacks when I, was 29 years old, and then started freaking out when I saw gray hair, not because I was less attractive, because like I said, I'd been celibate for 10 years, but because it was evidence that I was buying into a system, into a belief system. Vogue magazines would freak me out. I would see billboards. It would be terrifying. And yet, when I started to embrace this reality that you say is distracting, for me, I found it was quite the opposite. And then in our earnest desire to get this knowledge out, because these images are cartoon images that led our people to war, it was an illusion. And if they say physical immortality is impossible, and you go, what? You're living in a dream world anyway. Things that are cartoons are leading to the bloodshed that you were talking about last night, why people go off to war, and that the flesh is sacred. So it was discovered that on the internet, one of the most hit things is pornography. People want to see beautiful bodies. They're attracted to that. And in our discussion now, it seems as though this knowledge of immortality attracts everyone. All of the religions have this notion. The Muslims, talk about it. The Christians talk about it. The Egyptians did. The Jews did. I went up and got an encyclopedia of Judaism, and they talk about the Lutz bone, a bone at the base of the spine, and the reason that the Jews don't burn themselves is because cremation may destroy this small bone from which you need to regenerate the whole body if you happen to go that route. So we have in worldwide huge tradition of knowledge about immortality. So that people are attracted to it if they're just allowed to shamelessly go in that direction. And in the same way, the reason I did this wasn't to be attracting men and having them do what would be the absolute opposite of what you'd want to do in building up a society, which is that they would shed their seed shamelessly. And I can see with Bernadine the way she talked about her background and her upbringing. She honored her body, in a way that would also honor the men around her. But that you want to go up into a new reality. So I remember when I showed that to Alan, you didn't think it was pornography.
No.
You saw the joy that I was dancing.
Yeah.
And my feeling was in my late 20s when I was in the ashram and I'd been celibate for so long, I looked into a mirror and I said, my body wasn't created for me just to be alone. There is something to do with this sexual nature that's the sharing. So to me, I'm adamant that physical immortality is about sharing, and it's about having found a purpose and to go forth with that. And that's just the excitement that I wanted to share with you, because I hadn't even looked at my butt. And I realized that something had happened in 2 years, and even though I was older, it was looking wonderful, and it was just the happiness and the joy of having a body. So that's how I wanted to set the tone of why I did that, and why I took the courage to share this with you, or put you on the spot, because I felt you were sincere about your belief in immortality, and I'm putting my sincerity out there, and that's why.
Great.
That's why. And
That's great, Paula. You are sincere.
So I just want more of your comments, though, vis-a-vis what I showed you the second time. How do you feel?
Well, first of all, I think it was beautiful. I felt your joy in dancing. I didn't think of it as a pornography at all. I could feel your joy and your fun in that, and the body is beautiful when you come from that place. I mean, there's people who dance with clothes on or dance with clothes off, and there's something that you can feel from their body that's not really whole, that's not complete, that's unclean, because from where they're coming from. And that from you, I felt a total joy of your body. And I thought it was really beautiful. As far as the conspiracy part, or with the 9/11, I'm not sure if, in my own self, if that's real or not. But the point is, for me, is I know there's been conspiracies going on since the beginning of humankind. So it may or may not be a real thing. But what I want to say in it is that I think I agree with Chuck that we've got to focus on, be aware all the time. Be aware. I mean, I'm all for it. I'm glad you're pursuing those things. That's great, to know the depths of that. I think we need to be aware of everything, but not be lost in it.
But let me just, at least you misunderstand what I'm saying.
Sure.
Bernadine talked about the body, the joy of the body, of the physical body. And to me, that was my way. I was at my wits' ends. But I said, you know, if we're gone tomorrow, I'm going to enjoy every gift I have today and share that.
Yes.
Share that in a way that uplifts people. And in the same way, I'm offering this to you now because I don't want your message to be misunderstood.
Yeah,
I want it to uplift people. And the idea of this, there's a lot of social engineering that's going on behind the scenes to indicate that we don't deserve all that we do deserve. There's some people, I think it's deeper than conspiracy. It's ignorance. It's ignorance.
It is.
And in
Sure.
order to keep deceiving people, they withhold and make us feel that we're not entitled to what we're entitled to. So what most quickly breaks the illusion of the cartoon reality that we saw are these, they could be provocative, joyful. There's something really natural about the sexual attraction between men and women, and that energy can be taken and it can be transformed. And I would like to call my piece and the people, the editor that worked with that, a transformational piece, but something where you put your ass on the line. You know?
Literally.
That,
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think that's beautiful. And I think for one thing, when you said you begin to look into this or get revealed about some things or aware of things more about what was going on in the 9/11 and so forth, you begin to have a transformation in your body. You became more alive. And I think that that's what happens with purpose.
Right.
You know, you have to have purpose in life. And I think you have I'll say your own identity in this, and your own personal purpose that's going on that I think is great. I feel you alive. I feel like you're progressing. I feel the key thing in this that I feel with you, Paula, is that you feel yourself physically immortal. If I'm gathering this from you, or you're definitely exploring. Yes.
Do you feel that, Bernadine? Like your body is telling you is it a woman thing? That we flow with energy? That something tells us?
I think women are more sensitive. It seems like a lot of times in this way. I do, but I'm seeing though even men also becoming now, especially when they wake up to being physically immortal, they're becoming more sensitized all the time in their bodies. So I can't make a difference really between the male and the female now. For me, they become one. So.
But you're aware that you're very attractive to men. And you must always have been, right?
Yes.
And how do you view that in the future? How do you use your gift? Or you don't think about it? I really don't. You're dressed like nobody else I know born in the year you say.
I know. Well, it's simply because I haven't gone the way of time. I haven't gone the way of years. I don't have it in my body. I'm not living the years that I am. My peer group, so to speak, I cannot relate to them unless they're awake, really, because they're out of my
Peer age-wise group. And how about your children? Do they look as good?
They look good. Yeah.
Very good.
They do. They look good.
And you indicate you have a nice rapport with them. So
I do. We have a wonderful rapport together. Yeah. It's great. It's great. Yeah.
Michelle.
Show you anything.
Anything about Tahiti, immortality in Tahiti.
Oh my Lord. Actually, I was reading the story of one of my ancestors. One of the queens we had different. At some point, she was Tiritaria. She actually went by a tree, and she went into a trance for 4 weeks. And then her soul went, departed, and she met, it's a true story. Someone actually met her and fell in love with her, brought her back to his belly or somewhere. It was a very, very powerful experience for the people of the island, especially Huahine, where I was born. And then the spirit, she met one of the family members also, who in the spirit world, who said she had to be back. So the man who knew that, who fell in love with her in that realm, was still safeguarding her. And she then received this knowledge of coming back, and they fed her with sea urchins, which I love, actually. I never realized that. But while she was actually still in this trance, there was a white heron, you call heron, who was there. I never knew that. It was just recently that I was reading the story of my family. And because I also stood by a white heron when my mom had passed away, I didn't know that. It came many times. I didn't know that the white heron was part of my family animals, not just the shark. And when the white heron kept her while she was visiting different worlds, and while she was fed with sea urchins, her body came back to life. And she actually continued living, and she became very, very aware of the different places.
She was dead. How could she eat?
Well, I don't know if maybe she was maybe not dead, but people thought she was dead. And it was a strength. She was actually living something, meaning the cellular activity was so strong. I didn't go through lots of different stories, but in some areas where my family was conducting meetings among the chiefs of different tribes of the Pacific. See, the Pacific, the islanders, we have more than 118 islands, and Huahine had this special place, Maiva, which was named after one of my ancestors. There was a specific place where archaeologists found in the 8th century, where all those tribes came and met, and they couldn't even they didn't want to fight. It was very, very interesting. Right there, they just felt the desire of actually creating peace. So there was something very interesting about what they wanted to do with their own lives, meaning that they had to unite, they had to create peace, they had to go beyond their own wanting of making wars. And that's why in my feelings, in my DNA, in my core, my essence, I don't like to see wars because it's against my own DNA.
Right. That's right.
You understand? So in my core, my essence, I don't just feel this body, I feel more than just the physical body. You saw me dancing. We have a lot of things in Tahiti. We celebrate life, as I told you. So for us, life is more powerful than dying. The death is something that you, in the ancient, very deep ancient traditions, that are not so known for the common one, but the Polynesians from before were very attracted. As you know, the Lemurians were flying, where they were highly, highly evolved. They were highly involved in science, highly involved in technology, highly involved in in so many fields that they knew that they had to bring this knowledge of life and share that with people. So we are here, we're really here to celebrate all those elements.
Well, maybe the worst thing about war right now is that we need everybody, like you were explaining, Bernadine.
Yeah, I like what she said.
That we need everybody, and that one person less is affecting our physical body.
I actually, it's great that you bring this, because I noticed when she says we need, that's the feeling that we're very deep in their souls. We really need the mankind.
Yeah. Well, so maybe
we need each other.
So maybe this would be greater than the conspiracy and address the ignorance, that whoever is plotting and planning and doing things like computer-generated images to galvanize the people to war, that if they could be informed, address their ignorance, that these people who are being killed for the sake of making a few dollars for the weapons, you would be better served to achieve your immortality, nothing less than your immortality, by allowing for everyone.
There needs to be a wake-up in all humankind.
That's for everyone.
To stop the games. Stop the war games.
But this means radically changing our notion of scarcity, that less for me, more for you does not mean less for me, but more for me.
They need to really get. They need
and,
to really.
And we have the economic models. I've got a professor with binary economics. Most of our wealth comes from capital. It doesn't come from labor. And yet, the whole population is subdued into thinking that the only way they can get ahead is to work hard. And the very rare entrepreneur who breaks the barrier can accomplish it. So you can see, even in our models of economics, it doesn't make any sense. That's why I'm saying, when you come along talking about physical immortality, and people say that doesn't make any sense, I can show any number of examples of institutions that are radically not making sense and totally death-oriented. That they just die. Our economy is based on death.
Exactly.
That's so true.
No, that's very true. I think, but also when you build, and if we go the way of life, you bring life. So you don't want to destroy. You want to just use all this energy, this source that is deep within us. If we build with that source, then there's great possibilities in so many areas, and that's what I'm not bored with my life. I just say, my God, if I had 21 bodies, I would still be busy. Really
there you
true.
Go. That's right.
I will be extremely
Never a
busy.
boring moment.
Give me 100 bodies, I will be very busy. I don't understand people who say, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's true.
I have a lot of
So
energy.
true.
I mean, it's when you think positive, when you think you want to build, well, even if I live in even if I am 500 years old, I will still be busy.
Well,
that's right. That's
really good.
Yeah, and Paul, I like your expression about these people in the world who maybe are moving for some self-centered personal agenda, creating wars or whatever for monies or whatever it may be. They need to really get that they're not really serving themselves in the long run. This is where a wake-up needs to happen in all humankind. That it only takes them down. They're the ones that experience the death inevitably themselves. They need to get that by waking up to what we're talking about here of being deathless, beginning to serve the life of humankind will benefit them also. They think that getting all this money is, and for these greedy reasons, is helping them, but all it's doing is they can't spend it when they're dead. They can't spend it. They end up killing the loved ones around them. Anybody, they help stop the real progress of humankind. So by stopping this, by waking them up, by them waking up, I think I thought about this myself. This is why the word of what we are needs to get out, so they can get that it's not self-serving. They think they're serving themselves, and what they're really doing is destroying themselves in the long run. And so there's a wake up to happen through all humankind, and that's why I think it's so vital for I think it's so vital for what we're saying here to get out to the whole world, so people can really have these options to wake up or not. Mm-hmm. And it's tremendous. So and
I just wanted to say that, you know, going after something like ignorance, that I think is more the culprit than conspiracy.
I think you're exactly right.
It's not a dour
exactly
process,
right.
celibate and eat
That's
grains
right.
and birdseed.
That's right.
But that's what my piece was all about.
Yes.
And it was taking everything on. I asked the animator, the editor, I said, I put some of those fake airplanes flying into my belly. I can handle
Yes. There you go. It's survival. A lot of it's survival stuff that we've got to get out of this animalistic chemistry of survival, to where we begin and survival propagates ignorance, because all you are is out to, you know, survive, and you do it from that very small place. Then realizing that by really moving to build other human beings in this world and not destroying them is gets you out of survival. There was a guy last night who was in our event. And I love the guy. The first time I met him, Angel, when he spoke up and said he might even be listening today. He said he was going to maybe stream in with us, but he said, you know, he had this, saw us through the, he was, I guess, cruising through the internet and saw us there and thought, this is what, you know, I feel, and showed up that night. But he was just expressing about how vital it is on being alive and you know, serving other people. Yeah. That's one of the key things. Is serving other people gets him to help build other people, gets him out of his own self-centered life and builds a bigger world for him. Mm-hmm. That was a key thing he said that so touched me. Beautiful. Yes, it was beautiful, and I think this is we don't realize how important that is, to not just be so in our own small little world, trying to grab everything we can. Only defeats us in the long run. Only defeats yourself. It keeps you empty, alone, and unhappy, no matter how many things you gather around yourself.
I have a question, because you know, you talk about the community, but I know for myself what's true. I know it's possible, and I find that other people's beliefs get in the way. So it's like Leonard Orr. He says, well, you'd rather not have other people around. So it's like when you know that strong in yourself, is there really? What is Leonard Orr saying? He says he meets masters who say he doesn't want to be with people in this belief because they take down what he knows to be true. So I find that's actually better for me, to know what's true for me and not actually be influenced, because I know what you're saying. So how do you deal with that and other people?
Well, yes, I you know, I'm made aware of what's really available in a deathless life that are toxic.
Yeah.
And so are toxic, and to be around them, you know, and you have that. What's also very powerful and very necessary is having there's people in the world that aren't toxic and that want to live and will give that reciprocation. I say hopefully. I'm confident of this. I've already seen it happening. Being with people who inspire you to live rather than to die. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Being with people who encourage you to live rather than die is the most wonderful thing. It's in total contrast of being around people who are toxic.
But for me, it is not. You don't have to convince anybody of anything. It's either you know it or you don't know it. There's no convincing.
That's right. That's right.
So it's like,
that's
why?
right.
Not going to waste
time. To us, we're just out finding those who are want to live now. Right. You know, moving forward with them, not getting caught in the negative stuff, not struggling with people who want to die. I said last night, it's like suicide counseling. Right. You know, you keep moving to find the people, because we're actually out to build our own bodies. And those who really want to live. I'm not out here to be a pioneer of physical mortality, be a host to it, and myself die, sacrifice my own body. I'm out here to live, and that's a very powerful thing. Then I'm not just sending a message to people. I'm living myself, and the message is I want you to live too from that place.
Right. And it's not even about maybe living forever. It's living totally in the moment is what I get your message. Really, really being totally alive right now.
I think when you're living in the moment, you're automatically going to add days. I mean,
Yes.
there's going to be more and more days. Living the moment brings about forever. It really does. If you're alive now, how would, if it's always the now, then always alive. If it's always the now, always alive. You know, that's the way I feel.
Now and always.
So, now and always. Now and forever. I keep remembering it like a mic. Yeah.
Yeah, I said before we came here to everybody, when we had a last event we had before we came to New York in Scottsdale, I said, we're so used to putting the mic so close to us. But I said to everybody, I said, I have an appointment with you from 1,000 years from now. I said, that keeps me moving.
Yeah.
You know, I have an appointment 1,000 years with immortals, with you here in this room and other immortals on this planet. I'm going to be there. I'm going to keep that appointment. And I think that's another powerful biological movement in the body that says to every cell and atom of your body, hey, you've got an appointment to live. And I think it's important to make those appointments. We're going to be back in October. I have an appointment with you, Alan.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll
I have an appointment with another mortal body. That plane's not going to fall. I'm not going to get sick in between. I'm going to appointment. I'm going to keep that appointment with you, Michelle.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep an appointment with you to be with you, to maybe be with you in Tahiti. We have an appointment to live forever together. So from that place, that's the now and that's the always.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting, isn't it?
It is.
Very.
It is.
What do you say about that, Paula? Living in the now.
I was just taking a look to see if we had any comments,
Yeah.
but I don't see any, so that's about it for me.
Is it? Do you have anything else about living in the now about Jean Klein, your teacher?
Jean Klein discouraged immortality.
He did what?
Yeah.
This is a teacher should.
I had a teacher of Advaita Yoga, and I feel that he felt that people might pursue for the wrong reason. I think he
What
was
would be the wrong reason?
fear. I think somebody here said fear, and that's why I wanted to show those images of the World Trade Center, because that's something that's galvanized a lot of fear into people.
For sure.
So if you can start to address what you find fearful, you find it's not fearful simply because you've addressed it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
You
right.
know.
That's
So I welcome more.
That's what I got out of your dance, no matter what was going on around you.
Yeah.
That you were given to the joy.
Exactly. That's why I like to be physical.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's what you said, Bernadine, something that really made a lot of sense to me last night. You know, you like to be physical. There's something very important because this knowledge is shooting around on the internet. But a lot of these people who've done a lot of work in an online community, they haven't physically encountered each other. And that's immortality fascinates me, but physicality equally fascinates me.
Yes.
You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it.
So, anyway,
Beautiful.
thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you for.
Paula.
Thank you.
I want to say hello.
Well, I loved watching you dance. I thought your body looked beautiful.